So today we're making a brand new tier list, ranking every meta unit in Anime Expeditions, and their best traits and best equipment as of the 1.0 Dragon Ball update. Keep in mind the rankings in this video are just my own opinion, but I still hope you found the video helpful. If you do, maybe leave a like or subscribe, but anyways, let's get into it. Okay, hello guys, we're making our new tier list today for update 1.0. I want to make a few changes to the list we had for update 0.5 on the patch video. So first I want to expand the meta overall category to the top 10 instead of just the top 5. And then we're also going to move Crow up into it. So we're going to throw Crow into the top 10 here. And then with the DPS categories here, the meta DPS and good DPS, I do want to move up Doflamingo. Doflamingo actually has way better single target DPS than I thought. He's actually really good. And then to make some room for the new units of this video, we're going to move down Grimmjow, move down Puppet, and move down Yuta. And we're going to kick out Flame Emperor because his DPS just isn't good anymore. We're going to kick out Hollow Blaze because his DPS just isn't good anymore. And then True Saint, I also think her DPS isn't good anymore, but I do think she could kind of be argued as a buffer, because she still does kind of have some value in being able to take 20% of the strongest unit's damage in her range, and then being able to make their damage crit because she is like innately a crit chance unit. So I don't know, you could argue she's a buffer by being able to upscale people's damage, but her DPS isn't very good anymore. And you might have noticed that there used to be a summoner category. That category is now gone. I don't think the summoner tier was very necessary, so we got rid of it. And we're going to throw Toymaker into the bottom of the good DPS tier. She's still pretty usable, but then in the stall support category, I do think Megami does have better stall potential than Gowther because he has his better rewind and stunning. And then Ice Mage, we're just going to kick out of the tier because, like, there's just better supports to use now, and really just any of these supports are way better than Ice Mage, so we'll kick them out. Now we should be ready to get into the brand new units here from the Dragon Ball stuff. So for the new units we got with update 1.0, we're going to be pretty brief on how we explain these guys because I do already have a showcase video on all the Dragon Ball stuff. And in that showcase video, a lot of you guys, like a really lot of you guys, were commenting asking for the tier list, so I'm going to try and speedrun this video. So first up, Vegeta I do think is the top 1 unit in the game right now, top 1 DPS for sure. This guy's pretty much just a raw DPS unit, and his DPS is really crazy. As long as you pair him with other units that are going to attack and crit and use follow-up attacks, he's going to scale his own damage up, and his own crit chance up, and his own crit damage up. And pretty clearly, he just has the best damage output out of like a single unit, so Vegeta I do think is crazy. Next up we have Trunks, and I would put this guy into the support category. His DPS is okay, he's probably going like right about here in meta DPS, but mostly his main value is that every few attacks he'll apply a debuff onto enemies, and that debuff will make them take 25% more damage from follow-up attacks and 10% more damage from physical attacks. And then we have Goku, which personally I think is the second best unit in the entire game. Arguably the first if you pair him with certain stuff, but I'll probably make a separate video kind of breaking down why this guy is so good. Pretty much what makes Goku so good is not only his own DPS, because his own DPS is like pretty strong, but maybe like right about here or something. But what makes this guy really good is that he's pretty much prime Yuta. Think of Yuta. The way that Yuta would take other units' damage and like make it able to crit, pretty much upscale other people's damage. Goku is going to upscale other people's damage like crazy, especially if you run him with 3 placements because you can pretty much do 3 times what we're about to talk about. Where every 20 seconds, every 18 seconds with Bamboo, Goku can teleport to a unit and force it to follow-up attack for 125% of that unit's damage. So pretty much you put this guy on like a Kenpachi for example, you can force that Kenpachi to attack at 125% of Kenpachi's own damage, and you can do that 3 times because you can do it on each Goku. You can do it on the same unit, so like, if you have 3 Gokus, man, you're pretty much every 20 seconds making this guy do an attack for like 400% of his damage. It's really crazy, and it can crit from my testing. I think the crit is based on the other unit's crit chance though, not Goku's. So, definitely going into the top of the buffing category, I think this guy is the craziest support right now. And then Cell is kind of a weird one because in like certain game modes, he's not going to do much at all. Because he does kind of take a little bit to get online. He does kind of have to like scale up in a match to get good. He needs to get 50 takedowns to go from imperfect mode into semi-perfect mode, and then 50 more to go from semi-perfect to perfect. So if you run Cell into like boss rush tournaments, he's going to do pretty much nothing because he can't get 50 takedowns very quickly. But if you get this guy working, he is probably top 3 in my opinion, the 3rd best unit in the game. He is a really good support for both stall and buffing, because for stall he has like this gel effect, which is pretty much a stun and slow. Really good. And then for buffing, if you have 3 placements of this guy, you can get down to 3 little clones, which actually buff the strongest unit in range by 10%. And having the unit down himself does buff the unit by 10% even more. So pretty much he can buff anybody by 10% like 4 different times, so 40% buff. I do think though, because he can only buff 1 unit, I would go ahead and just say these 2 are probably still better, because these guys buff everyone by 30%. Hubert is also a buffer. We'll move him into the buffer category while we're kind of on that topic. Pretty much he builds up like these cubes over time, he's got a few different things with the cubes, but to my understanding, there are like kind of two major things about them. Some of the cubes he can spawn in as like their own unit and do pretty good DPS with them. I think it is a max of 2, but they do like 5k DPS every 0.8 if you have Unbound. So from what I've seen, he has pretty good DPS if you use the cube, so that's pretty nice. And I mentioned there are a few main things with his cube passives. I think the other main thing is just for buffing other units because it goes up to, I believe, a 20% damage buff on a few units in his range if you put cubes on them. So overall, just a pretty good buffer. I do think he's just right about here in the buff category, and then pretty okay for DPS as well. I'm still not entirely sure how to like use this guy properly though. There could be like a secret method to make him even better, so of course take every ranking in this list with a grain of salt. But finally we have the brand new secret unit, Gohan, Prodigy. I'm gonna go ahead and say that this guy is probably number 5 in the game, probably top 5 right here below Megami. He has really good damage, and that damage is able to be full AoE. Every few attacks he has like a 50% of his damage full AoE attack, so he is technically full AoE and really good DPS. I'd put him probably like here in the meta DPS category. He's a really strong nuke. He does have like a transformation mode, which takes a little bit to ramp up, but it makes his damage really crazy. Overall, Prodigy just kind of has some crazy damage. And he is actually kind of a buffer. In my opinion, I would say he's a damage buffer. I'd put him probably just at the bottom of the buffing category. And the reason I think he's a buffer is because when he attacks an enemy that has a damage over time effect on them, he can refresh the duration of that damage over time effect, and he can like make it be applied from him so that the other unit that initially had the status effect can reapply it. Pretty much he can buff damage over time effects a little bit, which is really situational. In general, it's not the best buffing to have, but it's pretty okay. I do think it is worth noting. And I think this is all for the normal tier list. Again, this is all just my opinion and subject to change as I learn more about how to use these units or whatever. But a lot of you guys really wanted me to drop this tier list as fast as I could, so this is the tier list for now, in my opinion. Now we're not done with the tier list video just yet because I have kind of started doing something in my tier list videos. Let me know if you guys kind of like having this or not, but I want to start including the trait tier list and equipment tier list in the same video. So here's the trait tier list in my opinion. These are the best traits to roll on pretty much every meta unit in Anime Expeditions. And we actually got some trait diversity this update. A lot of units can't get by with Primordial. It is actually their best trait. So Cell wants Primordial, you want to have 3 placements of him for buffing. Trunks and Goku are kind of the same thing as Cell in that their supporting value is really important that they are 3 placement. So overall you want these guys with Primordial. And for DPS, I think you could make the point that Prodigy wants to have a different trait, maybe, because he's pretty cheap and his damage is like probably better with Primordial if you like max out every single copy. So you could argue that this guy wants Primordial or Forsaken for DPS, but in my opinion the safest option is Unbound because his nuke is going to scale off his damage and you want his like nuke, laser beam, whatever to do the most you can. And also Unbound is the most cost efficient trait of course, and I do think Prodigy should probably have Unbound on him. If I'm being completely honest, I don't really know with Cuber. Like you could run this guy with Unbound and his DPS would be pretty good. But for the most part, he's also kind of the same boat as these other ones here. He is a support unit, he wants Primordial. I do still need to test out more with Qbert for sure. I'm not entirely sure like where this guy stands in the meta at the moment. I'm still kind of trying to figure out like how good he is in certain teams or whatever. I do think this is the recommended trait tier list. I also threw in Megami at the bottom for range here. If you're running like global tournaments or something, one person probably should have an Optics Megami for the longer rewind. Puppet probably same thing. I think in a lot of tournaments you can run this guy as a 2 placement because if you want his DPS you want Unbound. If you're using Puppet as a support, which a lot of people kind of do, you want to run range or just any multi-placement trait on him. And then Inumaki, I think you can build either range or SPA. It really depends on the map, and in my opinion I like to kind of have both built. I like to have a built SPA and built range Inumaki, and kind of choose which one I run depending on the content I'm clearing. And I think that's really all the explaining you would need for the trait tier list. I think the rest is pretty obvious, so once again, just my opinion, and I could be wrong in some parts, but I do think this is pretty accurate for what traits you should go for. Finally, we have the equipment tier list, which once again, let me know if you guys actually like this being in the tier list videos or not, and having all the tier lists in one. I don't know, hopefully it's helpful. But I know we have a lot going on here. I'm sorry that this is kind of getting scuffed because we have like 2 rows of units here. But for the most part, if you look at this here, you're looking for 2 copies of 1 unit. So I'm looking for like what to run on Goku, for example. I'm looking for this Goku here and this Goku here. Tells me that I want to run these 2 equipments on him. And if you're kind of confused on like why I put stuff where I do, for the most part, these are just the best builds for damage on a lot of these people. It does kind of matter now that there are tournaments, so like any crit chance below a certain amount in tournaments is now going to be nullified pretty much, just to reduce RNG. So on a lot of these units, if you're doing tournament, you might not want to run Shinigami Sword because they don't really benefit from the crit chance from it in tournaments. For the most part, for just like general advice, these are the best equipments to run. For the Bamboo Bottle, I really think it depends in my opinion. You don't always want to run it on these guys because like you're missing out on some of the important damage relics if you run them. I do think though that a lot of the time you can get away with Bamboo Bottle on these units and it's pretty good. And then for a lot of the supports here, why these guys are like also in the SPA, I guess Inumaki should also kind of be here in the SPA. Really, you can run SPA or range builds on these guys. I did kind of talk about that in the trait tier list section. Also, I did kick out some units from here because Hollow Blaze and like Flame Emperor, I feel like nobody really cares about these units anyway because just like why would you use them? But if you do use them, I would put them like here. You want to run these relics on them because they are burn. Oh, sorry, not Magic Book on Hollow. You put a Shinigami Sword on him. But yeah, this is what the equipment tier list would look like. If you're wondering why Kenpachi's up here, by the way, in the like new Dragon Ball relic thing, pretty much if you didn't already know, this warrior pull equipment has a 20% damage buff to anything with a transformation. And it turns out that Kenpachi's Berserk form, after 25 takedowns, actually counts as a transformation. So you can get the 20% damage buff from it, and I would definitely recommend running this on Kenpachi. But overall, I think this is the equipment tier list, and I think that is the final tier list we'll check out today. This is all for the tier list video. Of course, everything in this video is just my opinion, take it all with a grain of salt. It is subject to change as I test out more and learn more about the meta, which I will of course have follow-up videos for, you know. But either way, thank you to my channel members for making the video possible. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you in the next one. And have a great day.